Welcome to the Afterthoughts podcast. I'm Gavin,
I'm Sam.
and we are talking about Matthew chapter 23.
Yep.
So this is getting into Jesus is kind of coming to the culmination of his ministry, and the heat that is happening between him and the Pharisees are getting at a fever pitch.
Yep.
And the conflict is getting real, and Jesus has a lot of things to say in chapter 23
Yes.
to the Pharisees. Specifically, what you addressed this last Sunday was talking a lot about the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, right?
Yeah.
You want to just break down real quick what you felt like Jesus had to say to the Pharisees?
Well, he's going to say it a lot more in this next chapter, that you look great on the outside, but inside you're dead.
Yeah.
And this passage at the beginning of 23 says that Jesus spoke to the multitudes and to the disciples. So he's not even really talking to the Pharisees. He's kind of having a sidebar with his people saying, hey, see those guys? Don't be those guys. I almost titled the message, Don't Be That Guy.
Don't be that guy.
But Jesus is pointing out that, hey, all of the things they're doing, it's all performative. It's all to be seen by people. It's almost like God is not even a factor in their equation. They're simply doing this out of selfish ambition. It's all performative.
Yeah. And Jesus has a lot, kind of to talk about with the heavy burdens that they place on people, that they desire the best seats. And he talks about, hey, be careful about taking the title teacher or rabbi or instructor and all of this kind of thing. But, your message touched heavily on hypocrisy, which is obviously sort of a hot button issue for today because everyone's always saying the church is full of hypocrites, right?
Yeah.
But I think you made a really important distinguishing factor and really definition around hypocrisy, because most of us think, okay, hypocrisy is, I say certain things, but I don't really live up to those certain things. And there's a gap between what I say and what I live. But you kind of addressed that a little bit, that's fairly universal problem.
Yeah, it's if you're alive and breathing, you likely suffer from that thing.
Yeah.
The gap, as I call it in the message, between what you say you believe and how you actually live. And Jesus isn't so much talking to those people, because if he were issuing judgment on people who struggle with that, then we are all toast.
Right.
What it seems like he's pointing out is, and he does this all throughout the Gospels, is not the people that have the gap between what they say they believe and how they live, but it's the people who kind of posture themselves as though they don't have a gap, as though they have arrived, they have no shortcoming or deficiency. And our church, when you take a DNA class, which you run, you go through the church's values, and the number one value that always sticks out to people about our church is transparency.
Yeah.
Greg says this all the time. We don't celebrate our brokenness, but we do acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And it seems like Jesus is going after the people who won't acknowledge their brokenness.
Which is very different, right? When we think about hypocrisy, it's kind of a different definition. So this isn't about that, hey, I don't have all my stuff together and I talk perfect, but I don't act perfect. But this is about pretending that I am perfect and that I'm pretending that I have all my stuff together.
Yes.
That he's really bothered by. Like, hey, if you want to be a Christian and you pretend you don't have any needs, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah, because it goes back to, I make the kind of hometown reference to Enron. It's fraudulent. Enron, they tanked because they inflated their earnings and they hid all of their losses and debts.
Right.
So it's this aspect of hiding. So if you want to follow Jesus, if the first step is hiding, that's probably not the best first step, to put it mildly.
Well, yeah, and that leads into like a spiritual, practical principle of becoming and following after Jesus is that, everybody's going to be a hypocrite to some point. We're always going to have a gap between what we think we should do or what we should be and what we say we even should be versus how we live. But really this idea of pretend is what's the most poisonous, it seems like, in the church, and the thing that Jesus is most against.
Yes.
This seems to be the thing that's going to derail people's spiritual lives more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the quotes I found kind of really fascinating was one of these quotes from Watchman Nee, which we don't often quote Watchman Nee.
No.
That's a name. That's
Yeah.
an interesting name.
I wish my name would be Watchman.
Yeah, I like that. Well, so I'm going to read it straight. It said, because they are rooted in God and have not therefore learned how to be hidden in him, carnal people long to be seen. They experience unspeakable joy whenever recognized and respected. And what just struck me in that was just that phrase, the hiddenness in God, to hide in God. What does that mean, Sam?
I can tell you what it's meant for my life. Hiddenness is seasons where you're not acknowledged, where maybe you feel overlooked, where you're not experiencing the promise. I think about Israel in the Old Testament wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. For a lot of us, hiddenness feels like the wilderness. Like we want to be somewhere, we want this job, we want this title, and we want this kind of place in life, and we're not there yet. And so we feel like we're in this hiddenness thing where God hasn't fully answered prayers yet. And we buck up against that a lot. But I have found that the way kind of my life has worked, and I talked to a few people after the services yesterday who have the same experience, you feel like you're in hiddenness, you resent the hiddenness. And then eventually you get into the promise, you're overwhelmed by the promise, and you're spending all of your energy trying to get back to the place of hiddenness.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I think what Watchman Nee is speaking to in that quote is that because I haven't learned how to be hidden in God, because I haven't received my affirmation, identity, security from my connection with him, I'm looking for everyone else to provide that.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly like looking for affirmation or approval from people, or I'm constantly crippled by the critique of other people.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of a big part because, I mean, we talk about that a lot in Regen is the people-pleasing tendency, which, I think more people, they go through Regen, they realize they have that worse than they thought. I mean, technical term could be codependency. But exactly what you just said, there's an inner insecurity in that where you're looking for other people to validate you. And so, man, I need them to like me.
Yeah.
And so that way I can't handle their criticism, and I need them to be positive with me so that I feel good about me. And so when Jesus is actually directing the Pharisees away from this kind of posturing and this people-pleasing tendency, he's actually trying to free them up.
Yeah, because hiddenness, and I think it's something a lot of us only recognize in hindsight, but hiddenness is actually a gift where God is starving you of the ability to receive the affirmation and approval from others and to find it in him.
Yeah.
Because once you find it in him, once you're public now, then you can receive encouragement rightly without taking it as like, stroking the ego or
self-inflating or whatever.
Yeah. And you can receive critique as like feedback as opposed to like a wrecking ball for your life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've experienced kind of both of those. And, that hiddenness in God, that's what's so interesting to me is that maybe hiding in God, meaning the way I think of that hiding in God is like hiding behind his reputation, right? So I'm drawing attention to him as opposed to drawing attention to me. And honestly, when I really think about it, that takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to be everything to everybody. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to have my life perfectly together. And frankly, I don't know that anybody should be fully counting on me for their well-being.
Yeah.
I just don't think I can handle that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't be totally counting on me for my well-being.
Exactly.
Because even that gets into a place of pride and self-sufficiency, and that hiddenness aspect is all about, I think you said this in one of your closing prayers, I forget what service it was, but that we would be in this place of constant dependence. That's the point of hiddenness, is to
Yeah.
like learn how to be dependent, so that when you get public or the promise gets fulfilled or whatever you're wanting comes to pass, you can maintain that dependency without letting that thing get you off track.
Yeah. Well, and Jesus talks about in that passage, and curious, I'm throwing this curveball at you, but
Hey.
he says, to the Pharisees. I mean, he's talking, like you said, not maybe directly to them, but to the disciples about the Pharisees. And he's saying, like, okay, hey guys, be careful pursuing titles.
Yes.
Instructor, rabbi, teacher, father, I think is one of them too.
Yeah.
He's like, watch out on those titles. Pursuing them. I mean, I don't think he's saying like, hey, you shouldn't want to be a teacher. You shouldn't want to be, a father. Obviously, many of us are who choose to have kids, right? So, but he is warning us against a certain type of title chasing. What do you think he kind of was warning us about? Why is it bad, I guess, to chase those titles?
Yeah, well, I said it in the message that a title with hypocrisy, a title without humility is just a smokescreen for hypocrisy. So like, if you have a title but you don't have humility, you have a lot of stuff that you're just hiding or pretending, then all of your life's motivation becomes trying to do whatever it takes to maintain the title,
Right.
at the expense of your own health, at the expense of your relationship with God, all of those things. And so you get so far off track that it becomes unrecognizable, which is, I think, when he's talking to the disciples, I said this too, like, did Jesus really mean to say, don't be called teacher? Because even in Ephesians, Paul says, hey, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers.
It's one of the offices.
It's one of the offices. Or was he talking about, in light of the hypocrisy comments, that having these titles while also being hypocrite, it makes it way harder to change, way harder to repent. The stakes become way higher.
Well, and I wonder if he isn't saying, like, as well, like, don't want those titles just for their own sake if your character can't support it. And I think you kind of said this in the message too, is that whenever somebody grabs a title before their character can support it, it's like torture to them. Charles Spurgeon, in one of his books, Lectures to My Students, his chapter 1, and this is, Charles Spurgeon had a college for pastors, trying to train pastors. And chapter 1 was, make sure if you're going to be a pastor, you got to be converted first.
Which should be like a go figure.
You think that's kind of logical, but he goes on to explain. He goes, man, if your heart is not really for the Lord, you actually haven't settled that you are a follower of Jesus. He goes, when you get up to preach, you're going to be like a slave to the oars, right? Because you're trying to keep up a show, a fake, identity every single week, and how tiring that is. Yeah. And you mentioned masks in the sermon.
The Sinclair Ferguson quote about how, he gives the background for the Greek word of hypocrite, how it referred to an actor, and how they have one, disposition painted on their mask, but underneath they could be totally different.
Well, and that seems to be part of this hypocrisy that Jesus is talking about. It's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
It's exhausting trying to pretend you're somebody that you're not, which I would think anybody listening, that they could identify with that, how exhausting it is to keep up a double life.
Yes.
I think of that verse in James that says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Yeah. I think that's in chapter 1, James chapter 1.
Doesn't also say he's tossed to and fro.
Yeah.
Like a ship.
That's right, infants, so we can be tossed back and forth. And that was a lot like what you were saying, tossed between affirmation and criticism. Like,
I forget who said this, but they said, if you live by their praise, you'll die by their criticism. Yeah. And it's like, there has to be a different metric of living than those two things.
You would think. Yeah, and it feels like a lot of instability. So hiddenness in God takes a lot of the pressure off, right? Because it's his reputation that is being elevated, not necessarily ours.
And it's his approval that I'm getting. I'm not having to bait approval from everyone else around me. I don't need to overextend myself. I think about Jesus he's going around Galilee and stuff, the ministry, there's mobs of people, and he would just go, okay, we're going to go on to the next city.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, picturing myself in that place. If I had thousands of people gathered around, I'm thinking, I made it.
Yeah.
Whereas Jesus, he's like unmoved by the number because his security is not based on how popular or unpopular he is.
Yeah.
His security is based on something that he's found with his Father in the secret place.
Well, it's amazing because imagine, you talked a lot about, the antidote being humility, but imagine if Jesus was a people pleaser, like he wouldn't have gotten very far in his ministry for sure because he's offending people. He's having people overly adore him too in unhealthy ways as well, and kind of both. And if he was pushed around by that, how unstable would it have been?
Yeah, not great. It wouldn't have been good.
Wouldn't. So, but let's land the plane on this. So humility, you said, was the antidote. Explain that a little bit.
Well, so you were just talking about how living the double life is exhausting. I think we can buy into the lie that sooner or later it'll be less exhausting.
Yeah.
And it won't.
Yeah.
It'll just continue, if not be more so. And so humility, in my mind, is going, okay, I'm hitting the brakes. I'm coming clean. I'm going to humble myself and take the mask off. And so...
And just be who you are, right?
Yes, be where I'm at. And now the hypocrisy is over. The pretending is over.
Right. And it is so interesting how much we can relax if we were just honest about where we actually were versus where we think we should be and projecting that out there.
Yeah. We live in this like dissonant tension between where we actually are and where we're trying to, position ourselves to be in front of everyone else.
So would you say, humility is almost like a synonym here for just being honest about our condition?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, why is that so hard for people?
Because we're prideful by nature, I
Yeah.
think. I think we're bent towards pride. I have this quote from a desert father in the sermon that says pretty much the only way you can outperform Satan is to have humility because Satan has no humility.
Right.
And to me, I'm like, okay, not to make everything in life a game, but if you humor me with the analogy for a second, like, oh, so you mean to say the only thing, like, I just need to focus on one thing in spiritual warfare, and it's humility? How can I be humble? Because if you look at the Philippians 2 kind of kenosis arc, it's like it's just humility on Jesus' part. And then God does all the rest. God does all the exalting. And so I think about my own life, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to worry about defending myself. I don't need to worry about getting the approval of other people. I don't need to be destroyed by other people's critiques. Maybe actually other people's critiques is an invitation of the Lord into humility. Everything can be an opportunity for humility. And then you're not living in hypocrisy anymore.
Yeah. What an idea.
What an idea.
Well, and it's not exhausting. What you do, I do think it's interesting in the church how much humility is strangely looked down on, right?
Yeah.
Hey, oh, by the way, you don't have everything together. Oh, shame on you. And I'm just like, man, wouldn't it be so great? This gets to the heart of the regen ministry for me. So regeneration, we're all about trying to help people be transparent and just say what's actually going on. But it's so difficult for Christians because we're used to this pretend game. Like we pretend we have it better, all our stuff together better than we actually do.
So would you say that the church by and large has, maybe not through its vocabulary or teaching, but maybe through its culture, has discipled people into hypocrisy? Into pretending?
I'm going to go on a limb and just take claim from pastors, teachers, as I am one. I'm going to say that pastors and teachers have gotten caught into this, right? That they actually think their job is to project a certain level of spirituality beyond what they actually have. And because of that, they lead from that place. And it's not something you can just name and say because you can't tell when it's going on. but you kind of can.
Yeah.
And that pretend cascades sometimes from
Trickles
the
down to
leadership
everyone else. Yeah.
to everybody else. They used to say, what's a mist in the pulpit is a fog in the pews. Well, what's a character deficiency in the pulpit becomes widespread in the congregation. And pastors who are not living honestly and with humility about where they already are or where they're actually at, sinfully speaking, start to make sin and honesty not be okay in their congregations. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a problem. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it is.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I'm going to speak from a counselor standpoint. I haven't met a pastor who's not codependent.
Yeah.
Who struggles with codependency, that they get a lot from the congregation thinking well of them.
Well, who wouldn't?
I mean,
if you had hundreds of people on a weekly basis
listening to
what you're saying, greeting you in the hallways, greeting you in the public,
afterthought podcast listeners,
all the things that Jesus says about the Pharisees, about being greeted in the marketplace, like how many times people recognize you in the restaurants around this local area, like, if you're not careful, that kind of stuff can be inflating.
Right, and if you want it to be your identity,
it's right there for you.
And all of a sudden you embrace the gap, actually, between what people are giving you versus what you actually are. Mm-hmm. And according to Jesus, you're not in a good place.
Nope.
Humility is leaving the restaurant.
Yeah, humility at all costs.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, any last words, like how do we get humble? Any kind of practical ideas that you do to keep yourself humble? I mean, I know,
humility is one of my strengths. So that's
we
just
can
a
always
joke.
say that.
Just a joke. I would say, like, surround yourself with people who will tell you who you are, like, and not in like a codependent way, but they will, like, they're not fooled.
Right.
When you get into that pretend place, they're not fooled, and they'll tell you. I
always think our family is a big test for that. Because our family isn't interested in being fooled. They live with us every single day. And I know a lot of people who, like, run from their homes because they get more affirmation at work. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, maybe you need to spend more time at home and embrace whoever they don't like at home.
Yeah.
And think about that a little bit more.
Who you are there is more real than who you are on stage in front of everyone else.
Exactly.
I would say, in terms of, like, staying humble, just be honest about where you're at.
Yeah.
Don't, man, I have a lot of wheels turning in my mind with that question.
Well, I think, like, confession is probably a big part of it, right? So if you are talking openly about your struggles, then it's kind of hard to believe your own press.
That's true. I think also, too, like, just pride is lurking around the corner at every instance, trying to lure you into its trap. So even in conflicts, it's so easy. So many of us immediately go into, like, motive assumption of the person that we're in conflict with.
Yeah.
And it is an act of humility to resist assuming motive.
Right. Don't assume motive. Don't assume you're right.
Don't sit in the judgment seat, as Psalm 1 would talk about.
Yeah. I think listening, I mean, it's a broad concept, but just listening more in conversation.
Yeah, practicing not having the last word, even if it's just a little internal game of, like, if you disagree with someone, does your opinion always matter?
Yeah.
No. For everyone walking the earth, your opinion doesn't matter about everything. So, like, practice finding those moments where you're like, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to argue. I don't need to have the last word. Or apologizing when you feel like you didn't do something, but it still hurt the other person.
Right.
All these little, pretty much every time you feel like you're putting your flesh to death, that thing.
That is humility. Well, you know what I'm thinking right now? Who's going to get the last word on this podcast? We just sit here silently staring at each other. All right, I'm going to take the last word in all humility. Thank you. And just say, hey, come back for Matthew 23. This is not the most controversial thing Jesus has to say to the Pharisees. It's about to get real.
It's just the beginning.
There's going to be some zingers in this next one. So tune in for this next Sunday. Come see us in person in church. But also in humility, frankly. Man, these words need to sink in because it goes against so much in our culture, our resume culture, our desire to succeed so much. And being hidden in God, man, what a concept.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
See you next week.